Hey everyone, settle in, because tonight we're taking a deep dive into a world that's equal parts fascinating and brutal. The life of a servant in ancient China's Imperial palace. Forget the silk robes and golden dragons you might picture from epic films. The reality for most people in the emperor's sprawling palace complexes wasn't glamour. It was grueling, relentless, and often thankless work. We're talking about the unsung cogs in the machine of imperial power, the men and women who kept the Forbidden City and its predecessors humming, often at the cost of their own freedom, comfort, and sometimes their lives. So, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and let's step into the year 1400, during the early Ming Dynasty, where your life as a palace servant is about to begin. Spoiler alert, you're not going to like it. Imagine waking up before the sun, your body stiff from sleeping on a thin mat laid over a cold stone floor. No cozy mattress, no soft pillows, just a coarse blanket that smells faintly of mildew and the sweat of a dozen other servants who've used it before you. You're in a cramped dormitory tucked in the outer courtyards of the Imperial Palace in Nanjing, the Ming capital before Beijing stole the spotlight. The air is damp, heavy with the scent of charcoal from last night's braziers and the faint tang of rice porridge cooling in a communal pot. You're one of thousands, maybe tens of thousands, of servants who keep this massive complex running. The palace is a city within a city, a labyrinth of red walls, gilded roofs, and endless corridors, all built to glorify the emperor, the son of heaven. But for you, it's a cage, a world where every step is watched, every mistake punished, and every day a test of endurance. Your day starts with the clanging of a bronze gong, the ancient Chinese version of an alarm clock, except it's less forgiving and a lot louder. You roll off your mat, your joints creaking from yesterday's labor. You're young, maybe 16, but in the palace, age doesn't matter. You're already a veteran of this grind. Your family, likely poor farmers from a distant province, sent you here years ago, either as tribute to the emperor or because they couldn't afford to feed you. Some servants are prisoners of war, others are criminals sentenced to labor, but you're just one of the countless volunteers whose life was decided by a local official's quota. Freedom isn't a concept you entertain anymore. The palace is your world now, and the emperor's will is your sky. Your first task is to dress, but don't expect a wardrobe full of options. Your clothes are a simple tunic and trousers made of rough hemp or, if you're lucky, low-grade silk that's already fraying at the seams. The color is a dull gray or brown, a stark contrast to the vibrant reds and golds of the emperor's robes. These clothes aren't just functional. They're a badge of your status or lack thereof. Servants don't get to look fancy. Your hair is tied back tightly, and if you're a woman, it's pinned up in a simple bun. No ornaments allowed. Men might have their heads shaved, a mark of servitude that sets you apart from the free citizens outside the palace walls. Shoes? Thin straw sandals that wear out in weeks, leaving your feet blistered and calloused from the stone courtyards. Now, let's talk about your living quarters. You share a room with a dozen other servants, men and women separated but packed in like dried fish in a barrel. Privacy is a fantasy. Your bed is a mat you roll out at night and store away at dawn. The room is bare except for a few wooden stools and a single brazier that barely keeps the chill at bay. Rats scurry in the corners, and the walls are thin, so you hear every cough, whisper, and snore from your neighbors. The smell is a mix of unwashed bodies, stale rice, and the faint mustiness of damp wood. If you're lucky, you've got a small wooden box for your belongings, a comb, a spare tunic, maybe a letter from home you can't read because literacy isn't part of your job description. Everything you own fits in that box, and even that could be confiscated if a supervisor thinks you're getting too comfortable. Your morning begins with a quick meal, if you can call it that. Breakfast is a bowl of watery rice porridge, maybe with a few wilted vegetables or a scrap of salted fish if the kitchen overseer is feeling generous. You eat standing up, gulping it down before the gong sounds again. There's no time to savor anything. The palace runs on a schedule tighter than a drum. Your job could be anything depending on your role. Are you a kitchen hand, hauling firewood and scrubbing pots? A cleaner, sweeping endless courtyards and polishing jade statues? Or maybe you're a eunuch, one of the thousands of castrated men who serve in the inner palace, trusted to work near the emperor's consorts without complications. Each role comes with its own flavor of misery, but they all share one truth. You exist to serve the emperor, his family, and the sprawling bureaucracy that keeps the dynasty alive. Let's say you're a kitchen servant, one of the lowest rungs. Your day is spent in a sweltering, smoke-filled kitchen, where massive iron cauldrons bubble with soups and stews for the imperial table. The emperor's meals are a spectacle, hundreds of dishes, from braised pork to lotus root cakes, all prepared with obsessive precision. But you don't get to taste any of it. Your job is to chop, stir, and scrub, all while dodging the wrath of the head cook, who wields a bamboo rod like a general with a sword. One wrong move, a spilled bowl, a poorly peeled radish, and you're on the receiving end of a beating. The kitchen is loud, chaotic, and dangerous, with burns and cuts as common as the rice you're cooking. You work 12, maybe 14 hours with only a brief break to eat another bowl of that same tasteless porridge. If you're a cleaner, your world is dust and repetition. The palace is massive, hundreds of halls, courtyards, and gardens, all needing to be spotless. You sweep stone paths until your hands bleed, polish wooden beams until your arms ache, and scrub floors until your knees are raw. The emperor might never see you, but his officials will notice a single speck of dirt, and their displeasure means your punishment. You carry buckets of water from wells half a mile away, sloshing over your already soaked sandals. The courtyards are beautiful, with their upturned eaves and intricate tiles, but to you, they're just an endless maze of surfaces to clean. And if you're a eunuch, your life is a strange mix of proximity to power and total powerlessness. Castration, often done in childhood, was the price of entry to the inner palace, where you might serve the emperor's consorts or even the emperor himself. You carry messages, guard chambers, or manage the endless paperwork of the imperial household. But don't mistake closeness for privilege. You're still a servant, distrusted by nobles and mocked by soldiers. Your body, altered to ensure loyalty, is a constant reminder of your place. And yet, some eunuchs rise high, becoming advisors or even spies, wielding influence in the shadows. For now, though, you're just another face in the crowd, bowing low and keeping your eyes on the floor. No matter your role, the palace is a world of hierarchy. Everyone is ranked, from the emperor down to the lowliest latrine cleaner. You're near the bottom, and the weight of that status presses on you every moment. You bow to officials, to guards, to anyone with a fancier robe. You speak only when spoken to, and even then, your words are measured, careful. One wrong phrase could land you in the palace dungeon, or worse, sent to a labor camp in the provinces. The emperor is a godlike figure, so distant you might never see him, but his presence looms over everything. Every task, every rule, every punishment is in service to him. Let's talk about the rhythm of your day, because in the imperial palace, time isn't yours. It belongs to the emperor, the court, and the endless demands of a sprawling bureaucracy. After that pre-dawn gong rips you from sleep, you've got minutes to prepare before you're expected at your post. No hitting snooze, no lingering over a cup of tea. Tea is for nobles. Anyway, not for you. You splash cold water on your face from a wooden bucket, if you're lucky enough to get to it before it's muddied by a dozen other hands. Hygiene is a luxury you can't afford. Soap is rare, and bathing is a once-a-month ordeal, if that. Your skin itches from sweat and dust, but scratching is just another thing you learn to ignore. Your work begins at sunrise, but the nature of it depends on where you've been assigned. Let's say you're one of the unlucky ones tasked with maintaining the palace gardens. The imperial palace isn't just a fortress. It's a showcase of beauty, a living symbol of the emperor's divine connection to nature. The gardens are meticulously designed, winding paths, lotus-filled ponds, and carefully pruned pines that look like they've been sculpted by the gods. But keeping them that way is your burden. You're on your knees by dawn, pulling weeds, trimming branches, and hauling water to irrigate the flower beds. The tools are basic: a wooden rake, a sickle with a dull blade, and a bamboo pole to carry heavy buckets. Your hands are calloused, your back screams from bending over, and the sun, when it finally rises, beats down without mercy. There's no shade for you, no break unless a supervisor allows it, and they rarely do. The gardens aren't just for show. they're a political statement. Every blooming peony, every perfectly aligned stone is a reflection of the emperor's harmony with the cosmos. A wilted flower or a misplaced pebble could be seen as a bad omen, and guess who gets blamed? You. One day, you might accidentally trample a chrysanthemum, and suddenly you're facing a lashing or worse, a demotion to something even grimmer, like cleaning the palace latrines. Speaking of which, let's not sugarcoat it. Sanitation in the Imperial Palace is a nightmare. If you're assigned to waste duty, your job is to empty the chamber pots of the emperor's consorts, nobles, and officials. These are ceramic or wooden buckets, often overflowing, that you carry through narrow corridors to a designated pit outside the palace walls. The smell is unbearable, a mix of human waste and the rotting food scraps that get tossed in for good measure. You try not to breathe, but there's no escaping it. Your clothes reek, your hands are stained, and the other servants keep their distance. It's a job that marks you, physically and socially. But it's not just the physical toll that wears you down. It's the constant surveillance. The Imperial Palace is a world of eyes. Eunuch overseers, court officials, even other servants are always watching, ready to report any slip-up. You're not just working. You're performing loyalty, obedience, and invisibility. Speak out of turn and you're flogged. Steal a scrap of food from the kitchen and you might lose a hand. Look too long at a noble's silk robe, and you're accused of envy, a crime that could land you in chains. The palace is a machine, and you're a replaceable part. There's always another desperate soul ready to take your place, so you learn to keep your head down and your hands moving. Food is another daily struggle. After hours of labor, you get a brief break for a midday meal, usually more of that watery rice porridge, maybe with a pickled vegetable or a sliver of dried fish. Meat is a rare treat, reserved for festivals, or when the emperor is feeling generous enough to distribute leftovers from a banquet. You eat quickly, crouched in a corner of the courtyard, because lingering too long risks a supervisor's wrath. The food is bland, often gritty with bits of husk or stone from poorly milled grain. It fills your stomach, but it doesn't satisfy. Hunger is a constant companion, gnawing at you through the long afternoons. Some servants risk stealing from the kitchen scraps of dough or a bruised fruit, but the punishment for theft is severe. You've seen people whipped until their backs were raw, all for a handful of rice. Water is another issue. The palace has wells, but they're often reserved for the emperor's household or the kitchens. You drink from communal buckets, and the water is murky at best, teeming with things you'd rather not think about. Dysentery is common, and you've lost friends to it. Servants who collapsed mid-task and were carted away, never to be seen again. Beer or weak wine, like in medieval Europe, isn't an option here. You drink what you're given or you go thirsty. Some servants try to sneak sips from the garden streams, but those are just as likely to carry disease, especially after a rain when the runoff mixes with waste from the latrines. By afternoon, your body is screaming for rest, but there's no such thing as a break. If you're a female servant, you might be assigned to the weaving rooms, where you spend hours spinning silk or cotton into thread for the emperor's robes or the consort's dresses. The work is delicate, your fingers raw from the constant motion, and the air thick with dust that makes you cough. If you're a man, you could be hauling firewood, repairing roofs, or carrying supplies to the inner palace. Every task is urgent, every moment accounted for. The emperor's court moves like clockwork, and you're one of the gears, grinding away until you break. The palace itself is a marvel, but you don't get to enjoy it. The red pillars, the golden tiles, the jade statues, they're not for you. They're for the emperor, his family, and the endless stream of officials, diplomats, and scholars who pass through. You're invisible to them, a shadow in coarse cloth, expected to disappear into the background. If you're lucky, you might catch a glimpse of a consort gliding by in a palanquin, her silk robes shimmering, her face hidden behind a fan. But you don't dare look too long. Eye contact with anyone above your station is dangerous, a sign of disrespect that could earn you a beating or worse. As the sun dips low, you might think the day is winding down, but the palace never sleeps. Night brings new tasks: lighting lanterns, guarding storehouses, or preparing for the next day's rituals. The emperor's life is governed by ceremonies, and you're part of the machine that makes them happen. Whether it's arranging offerings for an ancestral rite or scrubbing the steps of a temple, your work doesn't end until the overseers say so. And even then, you're not free. You collapse onto your mat, surrounded by the snores and whispers of your fellow servants, knowing the gong will sound again before you've had enough rest. This is your life, day after day, season after season, until your body gives out or the palace no longer needs you. Welcome to the grind of the Imperial Palace, where survival is a job and you're always on duty. Now that the sun has set, casting long shadows across the palace's crimson walls, your work doesn't stop, it just shifts. The Imperial Palace at night is a different beast, alive with flickering lanterns and the hum of rituals that never pause. You're exhausted, your muscles aching from a day of hauling water or scrubbing floors, but rest is a distant dream. Nighttime in the palace means preparing for the Emperor's endless ceremonies, guarding the halls, or cleaning up after the day's chaos. Let's say you're assigned to the lantern crew tonight, a job that sounds simple but is anything but. You're tasked with lighting and maintaining the thousands of oil lamps that illuminate dating starts at 7:32 p.m. Central European Summer Time on Thursday, June 5th, 2025. The palace, from the grand halls where officials gather to the narrow corridors where servants scurry. Each lamp is a delicate bronze or ceramic vessel, filled with fishy-smelling oil that stains your hands and clothes. You carry a small clay pot of embers to light the wicks, moving quickly to avoid spilling the oil or, worse, starting a fire. A single spark in the wrong place could burn down a hall, and you'd pay for that mistake with your life. The palace at night is eerie, its vastness amplified by the silence. The only sounds are the soft shuffle of your straw sandals, the occasional clink of a guard's armor, and the distant chant of monks performing rituals in the Imperial Temple. You're not allowed to speak unless absolutely necessary, and even then, it's a whisper. The Emperor might be asleep or he might not. His habits are unpredictable, and the court never fully rests. You've heard stories of servants being flogged for dropping a lamp or making too much noise, so you move like a ghost, your heart pounding every time you pass an overseer's post. The lanterns cast trembling shadows on the walls, painting dragons and phoenixes that seem to watch you as you work. It's beautiful in a way, but beauty in the palace is always laced with danger. Let's talk about danger for a moment because it's everywhere. The Imperial Palace isn't just a workplace. It's a political chessboard where one wrong move can cost you everything. As a servant, you're caught in the crossfire of court intrigues you'll never fully understand. The Emperor's consorts, his advisors, even his distant cousins are all vying for power, and you're a pawn in their games. Maybe you overhear a whispered conversation between two officials plotting against a rival. Maybe you accidentally spill tea on a noble's robe during a banquet. These aren't just mistakes, they're potential death sentences. The court is a place of paranoia, where loyalty is tested daily, and even the lowliest servant can be accused of treason if the wrong person takes offense. If you're a eunuch, the danger is even closer. You work in the inner palace, near the emperor's consorts and concubines, a place forbidden to most men. Your castration was meant to ensure your loyalty, but it also makes you a target. Nobles distrust you, fearing you've gained too much influence with the women of the court. Other eunuchs might see you as competition, ready to betray you to climb the ranks. You've heard of eunuchs who rose to become trusted advisors, wielding power behind the throne. But for every success story, there are dozens who ended up exiled or executed for a misstep. You keep your eyes down, your ears open, and your mouth shut, hoping to survive another day. For female servants, the risks are different but no less severe. If you're young and unlucky enough to catch the eye of a noble or official, you might be pulled into the inner palace as a low-ranking concubine. This sounds like a step up, but it's a trap. Concubines live in a gilded prison, competing for the emperor's favor while navigating the jealousy of higher-ranking consorts. If you're not chosen for that role, you're still vulnerable. A wrong look, a rumor of immodesty, or even just being in the wrong place at the wrong time could lead to accusations of scandal. Punishments for women are harsh: public shaming, lashings, or banishment to a labor camp. And if you're married, your husband, a fellow servant perhaps, has little power to protect you. Marriage among servants is rare, anyway. The palace discourages it, preferring you to devote your life to the emperor, not a family. Speaking of family, you don't have one anymore, not really. When you entered the palace, you left your old life behind. Your parents, siblings, or village are a distant memory, and contact is nearly impossible. Letters are forbidden unless approved by an overseer, and most servants can't read or write anyway. Your family now is the other servants, but even that's a fragile bond. Trust is hard to come by when everyone is struggling to survive, and betrayal is common. You might share a laugh with a fellow servant over a rare piece of dried fruit, but you know they'd report you in a heartbeat if it meant avoiding punishment. Loyalty is to the emperor, not to each other. Food at night is no better than during the day. If you're lucky, you get a late meal, more rice porridge, maybe with a scrap of cabbage or a boiled yam. It's cold by the time you get to it, and you eat in the dim light of a single lamp, surrounded by the smell of oil and sweat. The higher-ups eat lavishly. Roast duck, steamed fish, cakes flavored with honey and sesame. But those dishes are as far from you as the stars. Sometimes, during a festival, the emperor might grant leftovers to the servants, and you'll taste a morsel of something rich, a fleeting reminder of a world you'll never inhabit. But most nights, you choke down your porridge and try not to think about the hunger that will wake you before dawn. Sleep is your only escape, but even that is rationed. You get maybe 5 hours before the gong sounds again, pulling you back into the cycle. The dormitory is freezing at night, the brazier long since burned out. You curl up on your mat, wrapping your thin blanket around you, but the cold seeps through. Dreams, if you have them, are fleeting and often filled with the same drudgery you lived during the day. You might dream of your village, of a life where you could rest, but those thoughts fade quickly when the gong rings. The palace doesn't care about your dreams or your exhaustion. It demands your body, your time, and your silence. As you lie there, listening to the snores of your fellow servants, you might wonder if there's any way out. There isn't, not really. Escape is impossible. The palace is guarded like a fortress, and runaways are hunted down with ruthless efficiency. Retirement isn't a thing. You work until you can't, and then you're cast aside, sent to a labor camp or left to beg outside the walls. The only hope is to rise through the ranks, but that's a long shot. A few servants, usually eunuchs, might become trusted aides, but it takes years of cunning, loyalty, and luck. For most, the palace is a life sentence, and the only release is death. Yet, despite the grind, there are moments of humanity. A shared glance with another servant, a whispered joke about an overseer's bad temper, a stolen moment to watch the moon rise over the palace roofs. These are small rebellions, proof that even in this crushing system, you're still human. But they're fleeting, and the palace always pulls you back. As you drift off, the weight of tomorrow already presses down. Another day of labor, another day of invisibility, another day in the shadow of the Son of Heaven. As the moon climbs higher over the Imperial Palace, bathing the courtyards in a pale glow, you're still awake, your body heavy but your mind restless. The lanterns you lit earlier flicker in the night breeze, and you're now on a different task, preparing for one of the Emperor's morning rituals. These ceremonies are the heartbeat of the palace, a constant cycle of offerings, prayers, and displays of devotion that reinforce the Emperor's divine mandate. You're not a priest or a scholar, you're just a servant, but your role in these rituals is crucial. Mess it up, and it's not just your neck on the line. It's the cosmic order itself, or so the court believes. Let's dive into the world of palace rituals, where every detail is sacred and every mistake is a potential catastrophe. You're assigned to the ancestral hall tonight, a massive chamber lined with wooden tablets inscribed with the names of the Emperor's forebears. These tablets aren't just symbols. They're believed to house the spirits of the dynasty's ancestors, and keeping them appeased is a matter of life and death for the Empire. Your job is to prepare the offerings. Bowls of rice, cups of wine, and platters of fruit and meat arranged with obsessive precision. You work under the watchful eye of a eunuch overseer, who barks orders in a high-pitched voice that grates on your nerves. The air is thick with incense, a cloying mix of sandalwood and camphor that makes your eyes water. You place each item exactly as instructed, your hands trembling from fatigue and fear. A misaligned bowl or a spilled drop of wine could be interpreted as disrespect to the ancestors, and the punishment would be swift. Lashes at best, execution at worst. Rituals like these aren't just for the emperor's family. They're a performance for the entire court. Officials, scholars, and even foreign envoys might attend, their eyes scanning for any flaw that could be used to discredit a rival. As a servant, you're invisible to them, but your work isn't. You polish the bronze incense burners until they gleam, sweep the floor until it's spotless, and arrange silk cushions for the officials to kneel on. Every task is a reminder of your place. You're not part of the ritual, but without you, it wouldn't happen. The irony is lost on the nobles, who glide through the hall in their embroidered robes, oblivious to the army of servants who make their world possible. Let's talk about the spiritual side of palace life, because it's not just labor that defines you, it's fear of the divine. The Imperial Palace is steeped in superstition, a place where every shadow could be a ghost and every misfortune a sign of heavenly displeasure. You've grown up hearing stories of angry spirits, vengeful gods, and the delicate balance of yin and yang that the emperor must maintain. If crops fail or an earthquake strikes, the court whispers that the emperor has lost the mandate of heaven, and you, as a servant, feel the ripple effects. A bad omen might mean stricter rules, harsher punishments, or even mass purges of the palace staff to cleanse the court. You've seen it happen. Entire groups of servants banished or executed after a comet appeared in the sky, blamed for bringing bad luck. You don't have the luxury of skepticism. Religion isn't optional in the palace, it's survival. You participate in minor rituals daily, bowing to altars or muttering prayers as you pass sacred spaces. If you're a female servant, you might be tasked with tending the shrines of the palace goddesses, like Mazu, protector of seafarers, or Guanyin, goddess of mercy. You light incense, clean the statues, and offer small bowls of rice, all while keeping your thoughts pure. A stray curse or a moment of doubt could invite divine wrath, or so you're told. Male servants might assist in the emperor's sacrifices, carrying wood for the altar fires or cleaning the blood of slaughtered oxen from the temple steps. These tasks are gruesome, but you do them without complaint because the alternative is unthinkable. The palace is also a place of omens and taboos. You learn early on to avoid certain actions. Never step on a threshold, as it might disturb the spirits. Never whistle at night, lest you attract ghosts. Never mention death in the emperor's presence, even indirectly. Colors matter too. Red is auspicious, but white is for mourning and must be avoided unless a noble has died. You're constantly navigating these invisible rules, your mind as busy as your hands. One wrong move, like wearing a white sash by mistake, could land you in trouble. You've seen servants flogged for less, their cries echoing through the courtyards as a warning to the rest. Despite the spiritual weight, there's a strange rhythm to these rituals that anchors you. The chants, the incense, the precise movements, they're a reminder that you're part of something larger, even if it crushes you. You don't understand the Confucian texts the scholars recite or the Taoist charms the priests hang, but you feel their power. The palace is a machine of faith as much as labor, and you're one of its countless parts, grinding away to keep the heavens appeased and the emperor divine. But let's not romanticize it. The rituals are exhausting, and the stakes are brutal. If you're working in the ancestral hall, you might be up all night, only to start your regular duties at dawn. Sleep deprivation is normal, your vision blurring as you stumble through your tasks. You've learned to nap in stolen moments. 5 minutes leaning against a wall, a quick doze while waiting for an overseer to pass. These micro-sleeps are your rebellion against the palace's relentless pace, but they come at a cost. Get caught and you're beaten. You've got scars on your back to prove it, each one a lesson in staying alert. Food during these late-night shifts is scarce. You might get a handful of cold rice wrapped in a lotus leaf, but that's it. Your stomach growls as you arrange platters of steamed buns and roasted pheasant for the ancestors, knowing you'll never taste them. The irony stings. You're surrounded by abundance, but you're always hungry. Some servants crack under the temptation, stealing a bite when no one's looking, but the risk is too high. You've seen what happens to thieves. Hands chopped off, faces branded, or worse, their families back home punished as well. The palace doesn't just control you, it controls everyone you've ever loved. As the night drags on, you start to feel the weight of your existence. The palace is a world of contradictions. It's breathtakingly beautiful, with its golden roofs and jade carvings. But it's also a prison. It's a place of divine order, but it's built on your suffering. You're essential, but you're disposable. These thoughts creep in during the quiet moments, but you push them away. Doubt is dangerous, and hope is a luxury you can't afford. You focus on the task at hand, arranging the last of the offerings as the first light of dawn creeps over the horizon. The gong will sound soon, and another day will begin, no different from the last. This is the life of a servant in the Imperial Palace, a cycle of labor, fear, and fleeting moments of humanity, all under the shadow of the Son of Heaven. Dawn breaks over the Imperial Palace, painting the tiled roofs with a soft golden hue. But for you, it's just another signal to keep moving. You've barely finished arranging offerings in the ancestral hall, your hands still sticky with incense ash, when the gong sounds, pulling you into the next grind. The palace never pauses, and neither do you. Today, let's say you're reassigned to the Emperor's banquet hall, a place of opulence that feels like a different world from your dusty dormitory. The hall is massive, its ceiling supported by lacquered beams carved with dragons, its walls adorned with silk tapestries depicting scenes of imperial conquest. But you're not here to admire the decor. You're here to serve, to make sure the Emperor's feasts run flawlessly, even though you'll never taste a single bite. Let's step into the chaotic, high-stakes world of palace banquets, where every dish is a statement and every servant is on a knife's edge. Your job is to assist in the banquet preparations, a task that starts hours before the guests arrive. The Emperor's meals aren't just food. They're a display of power, wealth, and divine favor. A single banquet might include dozens of dishes: braised abalone, steamed crane, lotus seed cakes, and soups simmered with rare herbs from distant provinces. Each dish is crafted to balance flavors, colors, and textures, a culinary reflection of the cosmic harmony the Emperor is supposed to embody. But behind the scenes, it's pandemonium. You're in the outer kitchen, a steamy, smoky chaos of clanging pots and shouting cooks. Your task is to carry ingredients, sacks of rice, baskets of vegetables, jars of fermented sauces, to the inner kitchen, where the master chefs work their magic. The sacks are heavy, the baskets unwieldy, and the corridors narrow, so you're constantly dodging other servants or risking a collision that could spill everything. The kitchen is a hierarchy within a hierarchy. The head chef, a man with a temper as sharp as his cleaver, rules like a petty emperor. You're at the bottom, so you take the brunt of his frustration. Drop a radish, and he'll scream at you like you've insulted his ancestors. You learn to move fast, keep your eyes down, and anticipate his needs before he barks them. Your hands are raw from scrubbing vegetables, your arms sore from hauling firewood, and your clothes damp from the steam that fills the air. Burns are common, one wrong move near a boiling cauldron, and you're marked for weeks. You've got a scar on your forearm from a hot oil splash, a permanent reminder of a moment's carelessness. Once the food is prepared, your role shifts to serving. You're not trusted to carry the dishes to the Emperor's table. That's for higher-ranking servants or eunuchs. But you might be tasked with ferrying platters to the banquet hall's antechamber, where they're inspected before presentation. The platters are heavy, often made of silver or lacquered wood, and the food is arranged with obsessive precision. A single misplaced garnish could ruin the dish's symbolism, so you move with agonizing care, your heart pounding as you navigate the crowded corridors. The hall itself is a blur of color and sound. Nobles in silk robes, the clink of jade wine cups, the soft strum of a zither in the background. You're invisible to the guests, expected to slip in and out without drawing attention. If you're lucky, you might catch a glimpse of the Emperor, a distant figure on a raised throne, his face obscured by the crowd. But you don't linger. Eye contact is forbidden, and curiosity is a crime. The banquet is a political minefield. Every guest is watching for slights, every dish a potential weapon in court intrigues. If a noble finds a hair in his soup, it's not just a mistake. It's an insult that could spark a feud. You've heard stories of servants executed for less, blamed for poisoning or sabotage when the real culprit was a rival official settling a score. You're not just serving food, you're navigating a web of power you can't see. The stress is crushing, your stomach knotted as you pray you don't trip or spill. You've seen what happens to clumsy servants. Public lashings, banishment, or worse, a quiet disappearance into the palace dungeons. Food for you is, as always, an afterthought. After the banquet, you might get a scrap of leftovers, cold rice, or a bruised fruit, if the higher-ups don't claim it first. You eat in the shadows of the kitchen, gulping it down before someone snatches it. The irony isn't lost on you. You're surrounded by the Empire's finest cuisine, but you're starving. Hunger sharpens your senses, making every whiff of roasted meat or sweet pastry a torment. Some servants steal, risking everything for a bite of something better, but you've learned to resist. The punishment isn't worth it, and you've seen too many lose their hands or their lives over a stolen dumpling. Let's talk about the physical toll of this life. You're young, but your body feels old. Your back aches from carrying heavy loads. Your knees creak from kneeling, and your hands are a map of cuts and burns. Sleep deprivation blurs your vision, and hunger weakens your limbs. Disease is a constant threat. Coughs spread quickly in the crowded dormitories, and a fever could mean death or dismissal. Medicine is reserved for nobles. You're expected to tough it out or die quietly. You've lost friends to illness, their mats emptied overnight, their names forgotten by the overseers. The palace doesn't mourn its servants, it replaces them. Yet, there's a strange pride in your work, even if no one acknowledges it. A perfectly executed banquet, a hall that sparkles under the lantern light. It's a fleeting moment of order in a chaotic world. You don't do it for praise. You do it to survive, to avoid the overseer's rod or the dungeon's chains. But deep down, you know the palace depends on you. Without your labor, the Emperor's divine image would crumble. It's a bitter truth, one you don't dare voice, but it keeps you going through the endless days. As the banquet winds down, you're sent to clean up. You scrub the tables, sweep the floors, and haul away the remnants of the feast. The nobles are gone, their laughter fading into the night, but your work continues. The hall must be spotless by dawn, ready for the next ceremony or audience. Your body screams for rest, but you push through, knowing the gong will sound soon. You collapse onto your mat just as the first birds begin to sing, your mind already dreading the day ahead. This is the life of a servant in the Imperial Palace, a relentless cycle of labor, hunger, and invisibility, where every task is a test and every day a battle to endure. The first rays of sunlight barely warm the stone floors of the Imperial Palace as you drag yourself from your mat, the echo of the gong still ringing in your ears. Your body protests, every muscle sore, every joint stiff, but there's no time to linger. You've had maybe 4 hours of sleep, if you can call it that, and now you're thrust back into the relentless machine of palace life. Today, you're assigned to the Emperor's wardrobe chambers, a place of unimaginable luxury that feels like a cruel taunt to someone like you, dressed in fraying hemp. The wardrobe chambers are where the Emperor's robes, symbols of his divine authority, are stored, cleaned, and prepared. This is a high-stakes job, one where a single mistake could be seen as an insult to the Son of Heaven himself. Let's step into this world of silk and scrutiny, where every thread matters and every servant treads lightly. The wardrobe chambers are tucked deep in the inner palace, a series of interconnected rooms filled with cedar chests and lacquered racks. The air smells of sandalwood and camphor, used to keep moths at bay, and the faint musk of aged silk. The robes are breathtaking, dragon-embroidered silks in crimson, gold, and azure, each one heavy with intricate beadwork and gold thread. These aren't just clothes. They're sacred, each stitch a testament to the Emperor's cosmic role. Your job is to assist in their care, a task that requires precision and absolute deference. You're not allowed to touch the robes directly unless you're one of the senior servants, so you start with menial work, sweeping the floors, polishing the bronze mirrors, or carrying baskets of soiled linens to the laundry. The laundry itself is a grueling ordeal. You haul heavy baskets to the outer courtyards, where massive vats of water simmer over charcoal fires. The water is scalding, and the soap, if you can call it that, is a harsh mix of ash and animal fat that burns your skin. You scrub the linens by hand, your knuckles raw and bleeding by the end of the shift. These aren't the Emperor's robes, of course. Those are handled by specialists, but the undergarments and sashes of the Imperial household. Even these must be flawless, free of stains or tears, because anything less could be seen as disrespect. You work in silence. The only sounds the slosh of water and the rhythmic thump of wooden paddles beating the cloth. The overseer, a sharp-eyed eunuch, patrols the vats, ready to lash out with a bamboo rod if he spots a slack effort. If you're lucky, you might be tasked with something less punishing, like folding clean silks or arranging the Emperor's accessories, jade belts, gold hairpins, or embroidered shoes. This work is delicate, your fingers trembling as you handle objects worth more than your life. You've been trained to move slowly, to avoid creasing the fabric or misplacing a single item. The wardrobe chambers are a world of obsessive detail. Every robe must hang at a precise angle, every hairpin returned to its exact slot. A misplaced item could disrupt the Emperor's dressing ritual, a daily ceremony where he's clothed by a team of eunuchs and maids in a carefully choreographed dance. You've never seen it, you're too low-ranking, but you've heard it's like watching the sun rise, a moment of divine transformation. Your role is to make that moment possible, even if you're never acknowledged. The wardrobe chambers are also a hotbed of intrigue. The Emperor's robes are more than fashion. They're political tools. A particular color or design might signal favor to one faction or a snub to another. You've overheard whispers among the senior servants about consorts vying to have their embroidered gifts chosen for the Emperor's next appearance, or officials bribing eunuchs to ensure a rival's robe is accidentally damaged. You don't understand the full scope of these games, but you know enough to stay out of them. Overhear too much, and you might be silenced to protect a secret. Keep your head down, do your job, and pray you're not noticed. That's the servant's mantra. Let's talk about the psychological toll of this life. The palace is a pressure cooker, where every moment is a test of obedience and endurance. You're constantly watched, not just by overseers but by other servants desperate to prove their loyalty by reporting you. Trust is a rare commodity, and friendships are fragile. You might share a moment of camaraderie with another servant, maybe a quiet laugh over a clumsy official's spilled wine, but you know they'd betray you in a heartbeat if it meant avoiding punishment. The isolation is crushing, your only companions the endless tasks and the weight of your own survival. Your mind is as tired as your body. You're always on edge, anticipating the next order, the next potential mistake. The rules are endless. Don't speak unless spoken to, don't look up, don't touch anything you're not assigned to. Even your thoughts feel policed, as if the palace gods can see your resentment. You've learned to bury your emotions deep, to wear a mask of blank obedience. But at night, when you collapse onto your mat, the mask slips. You think of your family, your village, a life you can barely remember. Those memories are fading, replaced by the rhythm of the palace. The gong, the lash, the endless grind. Food remains a distant dream. Midday brings another bowl of watery porridge, maybe with a scrap of pickled radish if you're lucky. You eat standing up, gulping it down before the next task calls. The wardrobe chambers are near the kitchens, so you're tortured by the smells of roasting meat and steaming buns prepared for the Emperor's table. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. Stealing is tempting. There are moments when you're alone with a tray of discarded fruit, but the risk is too great. You've seen servants branded for less, their faces marked with hot iron as a warning to others. As the day stretches into evening, you're sent to repair minor damage to the robes, sewing loose threads or polishing tarnished ornaments. The work is meticulous, your eyes straining in the dim light of an oil lamp. Your fingers cramp, but you can't stop until the overseer approves. The robes must be perfect, a reflection of the Emperor's flawless rule. You've never seen him wear these clothes, but you've heard he changes robes multiple times a day, each outfit tailored to the occasion, morning rituals, court audiences, or evening banquets. Every change requires a new team of servants, a new set of tasks, and a new chance for something to go wrong. By nightfall, you're back in the dormitory, your body a map of aches and bruises. The wardrobe chambers were quieter than the kitchens or gardens, but the pressure was just as intense. You collapse onto your mat, the cold seeping through your thin blanket. The other servants are already snoring, their breaths uneven from exhaustion or illness. You close your eyes, but sleep is fitful, broken by dreams of endless corridors and the clanging of the gong. Tomorrow will bring another assignment. Maybe the gardens, maybe the latrines, but it will be the same grind, the same fear, the same invisibility. This is the life of a servant in the Imperial Palace, a world of beauty built on your broken body, where every day is a fight to keep going under the shadow of the Son of Heaven. The night wraps the Imperial Palace in a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional creak of a wooden beam or the distant bark of a guard dog. You're back on your thin mat, but sleep eludes you, your mind still buzzing from the day's relentless pace in the wardrobe chambers. The cold seeps through the stone floor, and your blanket, more holes than fabric, offers little comfort. You're bone tired, but the palace doesn't care. In a few hours, the gong will sound, and you'll be dragged into another day of servitude. Today, let's say you're assigned to one of the most dreaded tasks in the palace, maintaining the Imperial stables. The Emperor's horses are treated better than you are, and keeping their world pristine is a job that tests your endurance and your patience. Let's dive into the gritty, grueling reality of the stables, where the stench is your companion and the stakes are as high as ever. The stables are on the palace's outer edge, a sprawling complex of wooden stalls and packed earth courtyards. These aren't ordinary horses. They're the Emperor's war steeds, ceremonial mounts, and gifts from foreign kings, each one a symbol of imperial might. Some are sleek, with coats like polished ebony. Others are massive, bred for battle, their hooves capable of crushing a skull. Your job is to keep their stalls spotless, their water fresh, and their feed perfectly measured. The stables are overseen by a grizzled official who loves horses more than people, and his temper is as unpredictable as a stallion's kick. You're one of a dozen servants assigned to this task, all of you moving in a silent, practiced rhythm to avoid his wrath. Your day starts before dawn, hauling buckets of water from a nearby well. The buckets are heavy, the yoke digging into your shoulders, and the path is uneven, so you're constantly sloshing water onto your already soaked sandals. You fill the troughs, careful not to spill too much. Waste is a punishable offense. Next comes the mucking, the worst part. You shovel out the stalls, piling straw and manure into a cart you'll later haul to a distant pit. The stench is overwhelming, a mix of ammonia and rotting hay that clings to your skin and hair. Flies swarm, landing on your face and arms, but you can't stop to swat them. The horses stamp and snort, impatient for their feed, and one wrong move could earn you a hoof to the chest. You've seen servants injured this way, dragged away with broken ribs or worse, their absence barely noted. Feeding the horses is a delicate task. Each one has a specific diet: barley, millet, or fresh grass measured to the ounce. You carry sacks of grain from the storehouse, your back straining under the weight. A mistake here, like mixing up the feed or giving too little, could sicken a horse, and the blame would fall on you. The official inspects every stall, his eyes sharp for any sign of neglect. A dirty trough, a stray clump of manure, and you're facing a lashing or a night in the palace's punishment cell. A damp, windowless hole where you're left to shiver without food or blanket. The stables are also a place of politics, like every corner of the palace. The horses are often gifts from vassal states or tribal leaders, and their treatment reflects diplomatic ties. A neglected horse could be seen as an insult to a foreign ally, sparking tensions that ripple through the court. You don't understand the intricacies of these relationships, but you know the consequences. Once, a servant was executed for letting a prized Mongol stallion go lame, the Emperor's rage swift and merciless. You keep that story in mind as you brush the horses' coats, your hands steady despite your exhaustion. Let's talk about the social dynamics of the stables. You're not alone, but companionship is scarce. The other servants are as worn as you, their faces etched with the same mix of fear and resignation. You work side by side, but conversation is minimal. Too much chatter risks a supervisor's rod. There's a hierarchy here, too. Older servants, those who've survived years in the stables, get the lighter tasks like grooming or saddling. You're new to this job, so you're stuck with the filthiest work. They don't help you, not out of cruelty but survival. Everyone's too busy saving their own skin to lend a hand. The physical toll is brutal. Your arms ache from shoveling, your lungs burn from the dust and stench, and your feet are blistered from hours in wet sandals. The stables are exposed to the elements, so you're freezing in winter, sweating in summer, and soaked during the rainy season. Disease is a constant threat. Cuts from rusty tools or bites from stable rats can fester, and there's no medicine for servants. You've seen workers collapse mid-task, their bodies carted away like so much refuse. You push through, knowing that weakness means replacement, and replacement means oblivion. Food is the same grim ritual. Midday brings a bowl of porridge, maybe with a sliver of salted fish if the overseer's in a good mood. You eat crouched in the stable courtyard, the smell of manure mixing with your meal. It's a bitter irony. You're surrounded by grain, but it's for the horses, not you. Stealing feed is tempting. Some servants have tried it, boiling barley in secret, but the punishment is horrific. You've heard of a boy caught eating horse feed, his tongue cut out as a warning. You stick to your porridge, swallowing it fast before the gong calls you back. As the sun sets, you're tasked with a final sweep of the stables, ensuring every stall is perfect for the night. The horses settle, their breaths steaming in the cool air, but you're still moving, hauling the last cart of manure to the pit. The stars are out by the time you're done, their light mocking your exhaustion. You stumble back to the dormitory, your body caked in sweat and grime. The other servants are already there, some coughing, others muttering in their sleep. You collapse onto your mat, the cold stone a cruel bed. Sleep comes in fragments, broken by dreams of galloping hooves and the overseer's shout. Tomorrow will bring another task, maybe the kitchens, maybe the gardens, but the stables have left their mark. Your hands smell of hay, your clothes of manure, and your soul of quiet defiance. You're a speck in the palace's vast machine, but you keep it running one shovel at a time. The Imperial Palace is cloaked in the pre-dawn gloom, the air sharp with the chill of early morning. You've barely closed your eyes, the stench of the stables still clinging to your skin, when the gong's harsh clang rips you from your mat. Your body is a map of pain, shoulders knotted from shoveling manure, hands blistered from hauling buckets, but there's no time to nurse your aches. Today, you're assigned to the palace archives, a quieter corner of the emperor's domain, but no less demanding. The archives are where the empire's records are kept. Scrolls of tax ledgers, military reports, and imperial decrees, each one a thread in the tapestry of Ming rule. This is a world of ink and dust, where precision is paramount and a single smudge could cost you dearly. Let's step into the shadowy halls of the archives, where the weight of history presses down as heavily as any overseer's rod. The archives are housed in a sprawling building near the inner palace, its walls lined with shelves of bamboo scrolls and silk-bound books. The air is dry, heavy with the musty scent of old paper and the faint tang of ink. Lanterns cast a dim glow, their light barely reaching the high ceilings. Your job is to assist the scribes, a group of dour, robed men who treat the archives like a temple and you like a trespasser. You're not trusted to handle the scrolls themselves. Only senior servants or eunuchs can do that, but you're tasked with the grunt work. Grinding ink, cleaning brushes, and hauling stacks of blank bamboo strips from the storehouse. Each task is meticulous, and the scribes watch you like hawks, ready to pounce on any mistake. Grinding ink is your first job of the day. You kneel before a stone slab, a small pool of water in its center, and rub an ink stick against it in slow, circular motions. The stick is made of soot and glue, its surface smooth but unyielding, and the process is mind-numbingly repetitive. Your wrists ache, but you can't stop until the ink is the perfect consistency. Not too thick, not too watery. The scribes use this ink to record everything from the emperor's daily edicts to the grain yields of distant provinces. A single drop spilled could ruin a scroll, and you'd be the one to pay. You've seen servants beaten for less, their cries muffled by the archive's thick walls. Next, you're sent to clean the brushes, a task that sounds simple but is anything but. The brushes are made of rabbit or goat hair, their tips as fine as a needle, and they must be washed with care to preserve their shape. You dip them in a bowl of clean water, swirling gently, then lay them flat on a cloth to dry. The scribes inspect each one, and if a single hair is out of place, you're scolded or worse. You move with agonizing care, your fingers cramped from the cold and the precision. The archive is kept cool to protect the scrolls, and your thin tunic offers little warmth. You shiver, but complaints are unthinkable. Silence is the rule here, broken only by the rustle of paper or the scratch of a brush. Hauling bamboo strips is the most physically taxing part of your day. The strips, used for rough drafts or temporary records, are stored in a damp basement to keep them supple. You carry armfuls up narrow stairs, the wood splintering into your palms. Each load weighs as much as a sack of rice, and the stairs are steep, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. You're expected to move quickly, but the scribes hate noise, so you tiptoe, your breath held as you navigate the archive's maze of shelves. Dropping a strip or banging a shelf could earn you a lashing, so you grit your teeth and keep going, even as your arms scream for rest. The archives are a place of power, though you're too low to feel it. These scrolls hold the Empire's secrets. Alliances forged, wars planned, rebellions crushed. The scribes are the Emperor's memory, and their work shapes the dynasty's legacy. You're just a cog, but you sense the weight of what you're enabling. Sometimes you catch fragments of their conversations, whispers of a border skirmish or a noble's disgrace, but you know better than to listen too closely. Knowledge is dangerous for a servant. You've heard of workers banished for overhearing the wrong thing, their tongues cut out to ensure silence. You keep your eyes on your tasks, your ears deaf to anything but orders. Let's talk about the mental strain of this life. The archives are quieter than the stables or kitchens, but the pressure is relentless. Every move is scrutinized, every mistake magnified. The scribes are unforgiving, their patience as thin as the silk they write on. You're not just working, you're performing perfection, a role that leaves no room for humanity. The isolation is stark here. Unlike the stables, where you at least shared the misery, the archives feel like a tomb. The scribes barely acknowledge you, and the other servants are too focused on their own survival to offer camaraderie. You're alone with your thoughts, but even those are dangerous. A moment of resentment, a fleeting wish for freedom, and you risk letting your mask slip. Food is the same meager ritual. Midday brings a bowl of porridge, maybe with a scrap of dried vegetable. You eat in a corner of the courtyard, the archive's walls looming over you. The scribes dine better, steamed buns perhaps, or a slice of pork, but their leftovers rarely reach you. The archive is near the Imperial Library, where scholars feast on delicacies, and the faint smell of their meals drifts through the air, a cruel reminder of your place. You swallow your porridge quickly, the grit of unmilled rice catching in your throat, and return to your tasks before the overseer notices. By afternoon, you're tasked with dusting the shelves, a job that requires climbing rickety ladders to reach the highest scrolls. The dust is thick, coating your hands and lungs, making you cough until your chest aches. You use a soft cloth, moving slowly to avoid disturbing the scrolls. A single tear or smudge could be seen as sabotage, and the punishment would be severe. You've heard of servants exiled to the frontier for damaging a record, their families disgraced. The ladder creaks under your weight, and you grip it tightly, your heart pounding as you stretch to reach a corner. Falling isn't an option, bruises heal, but a broken scroll doesn't. As evening falls, you're sent to seal the archive's doors, a final task that marks the end of your shift. You check each lock, your fingers fumbling in the cold, ensuring no unauthorized soul can enter. The palace is paranoid about its secrets, and you're part of the machine that guards them. You finish just as the lanterns are lit, their glow casting long shadows across the courtyard. You stumble back to the dormitory, your body heavy with dust and fatigue. The other servants are there, some already asleep, others staring blankly at the ceiling. You collapse onto your mat, the stone floor as unforgiving as ever. Sleep comes in fragments, haunted by dreams of endless scrolls and the scribe's cold stare. The Imperial Palace is shrouded in the faint haze of dawn, the air thick with the damp chill that you're bone-tired, but the palace doesn't wait. It's a world of steamy luxury where every task is a test, and every moment a battle. Let's plunge into this swelterous reality, where the Imperial baths hold a steep, hidden cost. Your day begins with hauling logs to the bathhouse furnaces. You start in a grim courtyard, grabbing rough wood, each log a weight pulling your shoulders down. The wooden yoke bites into your back, sweat already mixing with the morning's damp. Your wrists scream, bending, but you can't pause. The fires need feeding. You stack logs by the braziers, every splinter a risk. Filth here is a crime. You shove wood into the glowing heat, sparks flying, scorching your face. Your tunic's soaked, chafing, but there's no break. Scrubbing tiles comes next, a brutal kneel. The bath chambers gleam, marble and mosaics of lotus and cranes. But you're on raw knees, scouring with a coarse brush and ash water. The tiles slip, and you've seen falls crack skulls or spill buckets, earning lashes. The overseer, a woman with a bamboo switch, stalks, her eyes hunting smudges. You scrub in silence, breath ragged in the steam, hands blistered, knowing one missed spot could mean pain. Carrying scented water is delicate, cruel. Jars of jasmine or rose water, heavy and fragile, must reach the consort's baths. You cradle them, arms shaking, through tight corridors. One crack, and the ritual's ruined. The scent's divine, mocking your grime. You dodge nobles, servants, heart pounding. A spill could end you. The consort's world is untouchable. Their skin soft while yours cracks. The baths hum with danger, not just labor. Consorts scheme, nobles feud, and you're their pawn. A cold bath could be blamed on you, a dirty tile twisted into sabotage. You've heard of servants killed for disrespect, their deaths silencing whispers. You keep eyes low, steps sure, praying you're unseen in their games. The emotional toll cuts deep. Beauty surrounds you, marble, perfumes, silks, but it's not yours. You bathe in cold, murky buckets, your skin scarred while consorts glow. Resentment festers, buried fast. Even thoughts feel watched. You're a tool, not human, in this steaming paradise. Food's a grim pause. Midday porridge, maybe cabbage, sits sour in the steam. You eat in the courtyard, nobles' pastries out of reach. Hunger sharpens every scent of their feasts. Stealing suicide. The baths are watched, a peach worth a flogging. Afternoon means drains, a stomach-turning crawl. Bathwater, now sludge, clogs stone channels. You scrape muck in tight spaces, stench choking, hands slimed. Dizziness hits, but you clear every drain or face the switch. You emerge gasping, coated, lungs raw. Night brings polishing, brass cranes, spouts, handles. Fingers cramp, eyes strain in lantern light. The bath's quiet, only dripping pipes breaking silence. You finish as guard steps echo, then drag to the dormitory, body slick, mind blank. Servants cough, curl under rags. You collapse, stone biting, dreams of water and shouts splintering sleep. The Imperial Palace stirs under the faint glow of dawn, its red walls catching the first slivers of light. You've barely sunk into a fitful doze, the steam of the baths still heavy in your lungs, when the gong's merciless clang tears you from your mat. Your body is a wreck, knees raw from scrubbing tiles, arms leaden from hauling jars. But the palace grinds on, indifferent to your pain. Today, you're assigned to the Imperial Granary, a vital nerve of the Emperor's domain where the Empire's wealth is measured in rice and millet. It's a place of endless labor and suffocating dust, where every grain is sacred and every servant's mistake a potential disaster. Let's step into the gritty, back-breaking world of the Granary, where the Empire's lifeblood flows and you're just a speck in its machine. The Granary is a massive complex on the palace's northern edge, a maze of stone silos and wooden storehouses guarded like a fortress. The air is thick with the dry, earthy smell of grain and the faint mold of old sacks. These stores feed the Emperor's household, the court, and sometimes the army, making the Granary a linchpin of Imperial power. Your job is to keep it running, hauling sacks, sweeping floors, and checking for rot or rats. The overseer, a burly man with a ledger and a short temper, tracks every ounce of grain. His bamboo rod is never far, and his eyes miss nothing. A spilled handful could mean a beating or worse. Your day starts hauling sacks from the outer carts to the storehouses. Each sack is woven hemp, stuffed with rice or millet, weighing as much as you do. You sling them over your shoulder, the coarse fabric biting into your skin, and stagger across the courtyard. The ground is uneven, littered with stray grains that crunch under your straw sandals. You stack the sacks in precise rows, each one aligned perfectly to maximize space and deter pests. A misaligned sack could block airflow, inviting mold, and you'd be blamed. Your back screams, your breath comes in gasps, but you keep moving. The overseer's rod is a sharp incentive. Sweeping the granary floors is next, a task that chokes you with dust. The storehouses are vast, their stone floors coated with grain, dust, and chaff. You use a bamboo broom, pushing piles into corners for collection, your eyes watering and throat raw. The dust clings to your sweat, turning your skin gritty, and every breath feels like swallowing sand. Rats are a constant threat, their droppings a sign of failure. You scatter ash to deter them, but they're bold, darting past your feet. If the overseer finds a nest or a chewed sack, you're in for punishment. Lashes or a night in the granary's dank holding cell, where the cold bites deeper than the rats. Checking for rot is the most nerve-wracking task. You climb rickety ladders to inspect the upper sacks, probing for dampness or the telltale sour smell of spoilage. The ladders sway, the sacks shift under your weight, and a fall could break your leg or worse. You use a wooden stick to poke the hemp, praying you don't find soft spots. If you do, you mark the sack for removal, but even that's risky, too many bad sacks, and the overseer might accuse you of neglect. You've heard of servants banished to labor camps for letting grain spoil, their families left to starve. You work with a knot in your stomach, knowing every decision could be your last. The granary is a political hotspot, though you're too low to grasp its full weight. Grain is power. Its abundance signals the emperor's divine favor. Its loss a sign of heavenly displeasure. A shortfall could spark rumors of rebellion or weaken the court's grip on the provinces. You've overheard the overseer muttering about quotas and inspections, his voice tight with fear. If the emperor's auditors find discrepancies, heads roll, and yours is as likely as any. You stay focused, ignoring the whispers of court intrigue, knowing knowledge could drag you into a noose. Let's talk about the physical cost of this life. The granary is a crucible, breaking your body with every shift. Your shoulders are knotted from hauling sacks, your lungs scarred from dust, your hands calloused from gripping brooms and ladders. The work is relentless, with no shade in summer or warmth in winter. Disease festers here, coughs spread in the dusty air, and cuts from rough hemp can turn septic. You've seen servants collapse, their bodies hauled away like spoiled grain, their names erased from the roster. You push through, knowing weakness means oblivion. Food is a cruel ritual. Midday brings a bowl of porridge, gritty with husk, maybe a scrap of pickled turnip. You eat in the granary courtyard, dust mixing with your meal, the overseer's eyes on you. The grain you guard is untouchable. Stealing even a handful is a death sentence. You've heard of a servant caught pocketing rice, his hand severed, his face branded. The irony stings. You're surrounded by food, but hunger is your shadow, sharpening every wound a wound. Social bonds are thin here. The other servants are ghosts, their faces gaunt, their eyes spare. You work side by side, but talk is rare. Too much noise risks the rod. Older ones, hardened by years, claim lighter tasks like tallying sacks. They don't help. Survival trumps pity. You share a glance, a grunt, but trust is a ghost. Betrayal's always closer, a whisper for favor. By evening, you're tasked with sealing the storehouses, checking each lock to bar thieves or rats. Your fingers fumble, cold on iron, rusted bolts biting. The granary's silence is heavy, only claws skittering or wood creaking. You finish as lanterns flare, their light harsh against dusk. You drag to the dormitory, body dust-caked, mind dull. Others cough, stare into dark. You slump on mat, stone cold. Sleep's shards come, split by dreams of sacks and glares. Tomorrow will bring another task, baths, archives, or worse. The granary's marked you. Hands rough, chest tight, soul frayed. You're a speck, keeping Empire's pulse, one grain at a time. This is a servant's life. Dust, dread, grit, under the sun of heaven's shadow.